welcome to another Horror Review Sunday. We are going over The Frighteners, which came out in 1996 and stars Trini Alvarado and Michael J. Fox. I probably butchered that name. This has the director's cut. I did not watch that version, I don't think. I think I watched the theatrical ones. That's the one I will be talking about. This was written and directed by Peter Jackson, who went on to do all kinds of big movies. And this was also produced by him. This movie was a flop. I looked it up. This movie cost about $30 million to make, and it made less than $30 million. I'm not sure what it was competing against at the time, but it was a flop. So, but generally loved. Critics gave it positive reviews. It's got like 60+% on Rotten Tomatoes, and this is a film that this was basically my first time watching it. Although technically I've seen it before, but this is one of those movies that growing up I always saw bits and pieces of it on TV, and it's also just so happens to be one of those movies that for the last 5 years or so, there's been this little image, this little clip in my head, and I've been wondering for so long, what movie was that? It was The Frighteners. For the longest time, I've been wondering, like, what movie was it that had, like, the numbers on the head, and then this guy's head got shot off, and then it became, like, a ghost head? Finally! Answer. I finally got my fucking answer. But anyways, quick plot synopsis. This movie is about Frank Bannister, who can see ghosts, and he uses his ghost pals to go haunt people, and then they call him to get rid of the ghost. So he's a scam artist. And then one day he bumps into a real ghost that he's not familiar with, and he has to stop that ghost because it's a bad ghost. It's a ghost that's looks like the Grim Reaper, and it's killing all kinds of people. And let's get into the things that I like about this movie. First up, the cast. There are so many people in this movie where I was like, oh, I know that person. Oh, another person. You got like R Lee Ermey in here playing Shocker, drill sergeant. You got the cop from Halloween 5 in here. You got Peter Dobson. There's so many people in this movie. I didn't write them all down, but it was just like, oh, I know that person. So a great cast in this film. Lots of good performances in here. And I really like, Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs is a huge positive for me, but I feel like he would be a hit or miss for a lot of people because he's very over the top. He's the wackiest character in the film, and this is a horror comedy, so don't go into it as a horror movie. It's more comedy than horror. But Jeffrey Combs' character, he is so out there. His performance, he's got all these weird like mannerisms and like twitches and weird disabilities, like he'll puke if a woman yells at him. I love this character. Everything he said made me laugh, and I just feel like some people might get turned off by it or they'll think it's too much. But for me, everything Jeffrey Combs did in this movie worked for me. I was laughing my ass off left and right. Just love Jeffrey Combs.
Answer the question.
For Christ's sakes, it's really late. I can't remember that, okay?
The humor in this movie. Not only the humor from Jeffrey Combs' character, but everyone else. A lot of the humor was landing for me. It was very clever and funny. Just the ghost, and when and the idea when the ghost like goes to his own funeral, that's just a scary thought to have. Just it's funny in the moment, but if you took yourself out of the movie and were like, well, if that was me being at your own funeral, it's just a terrifying idea. Like being a ghost, falling into your own casket and then seeing your corpse lie there, terrifying. But yeah, just lots of good humor in the movie. And I like the Danny Elfman score in this film. It's very rambunctious, it's loud, it just never lets up. Sometimes there's scenes where I feel like this score is not needed at all, but overall I enjoyed the Danny Elfman score. I also really just dig the concept. Like, I'm sure there's other movies that have done this, but the idea of a guy who can see ghosts and he hires them to go do paranormal shit somewhere, and he leaves a business card, and then they call him and he makes money. I just like that concept. It's smart, and it makes for a good story. I like it. It makes his character a little unlikable because he's a scam artist, but it's a smart thing he's doing when you think about it. And the things I did not care for in this movie, one of the biggest things is the CGI was just awful. This was CGI done in the mid-90s, so of course it's not going to be that good, but this film, like, depends on it. So much so. Like, not only with, like, the glow of, like, the ghosts and the way they look, which I get it. I mean, they could have just had them look normal, kind of like something out of, like, a American Werewolf in London where they just look like dead bodies, but no one else can see them. They could have went that route, but I feel like the whole, like, blue glow around them was just because just to fit the tone of the movie, the silliness of it. But that's not even the CGI that I think is bad. Like, that's okay. The CGI where it's like you got like the Freddy Krueger moment where they're going out of the ghost is exiting the wall. It's like sticking his face through it, going underneath the floorboards, all that stuff. It looked awful. There's a lot of bad CGI in this movie. And Peter Jackson and his company, apparently he was starting some effects company back then called, I forget what it's called. Wet starts with a W. But yeah, him and his crew, they worked on the special effects, and yeah, it ages the film quite so. I did not like that. Now there is a twist in this movie regarding one character. I won't get into it here, but it seems very obvious, at least to me, and I'm not trying to brag like I'm so smart. I'm not. I don't think I'm smart, but I'm smart enough to see this twist coming. There's just this little twist where I'm like, is it supposed to be one? Like, I feel like it's obvious. It didn't surprise me at all. There was nothing surprising in the movie story wise, nothing that was really all that original. And the ending, it just plays it safe. It's not, I mean, I get the tone they're going for, it's silly, but I would have preferred it to be a little bit more grim, maybe kill somebody important in the movie, but they just play it safe. It's like a superhero Marvel movie. You know everybody's gonna live, and they do. And I guess the final nitpick would be the one ghost friend of Frank's character, the black one who's constantly just yelling. That's like his voice, just all the way up here, just always yelling. He won't bring it down. He's just constantly yelling. Like his character kind of annoyed me a little bit. But final thoughts, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm so glad I finally got to watch it. Jeffrey Combs' character is the biggest positive of the movie. He's wacky, very zany. Everything he said made me laugh. Lots of good humor, some bad CGI, but overall a fun adventure horror comedy. Nothing, no tension, nothing like that. Just go into this as a horror comedy, and I think you'll enjoy it. So when it comes to the Frighteners, this is a Peter Jackson classic that I think that you should definitely consider going out and buying. Now let's go into the spoiler discussion. So this movie opens up with Dee Wallace. I didn't mention her earlier. We got Dee Wallace in here, and I like that she's not playing the same type of character that I usually see her play, which is like, a house mom, housewife, something like that. The Hills Have Eyes, Rob Zombie's Halloween. I think she was in like Cujo. She's usually just the mom, E.T. also. But finally, she's like the crazy lady locked up in her house because her mom won't let her leave. You, I mean, that's one thing I thought about watching this movie. Is like, why is she still there? How does she, like, she's crazy, right? Like, she never, ever, ever had an opportunity to go grab a knife and just kill her mom. She's crazy, right? And she has this ghost buddy who's, for some reason, attacking her at the beginning. Like, I would need to watch this movie a second time to, like, fully get all the story and what's going on with her and her little dead boyfriend who's killing everybody. Because to me, it makes no sense. Like, she's being attacked, right? Like in this open, we get the CGI monster, and she's chasing her up the stairs. That's her dead boyfriend from like what 20 years prior or something like that. I think so. Whatever, doesn't matter. Why is he attacking her? Is it just them playing around? It looks like it's a legit like he's trying to kill her, but whatever. So yeah, that made no sense. I like how Matthew J. Fox, his character Frank, he's at a funeral handing out business cards like, I can, help you contact your dead lover right there. Just seems very inappropriate. What a dick move. And runs over this guy's fence. They get in an argument, and he has to pay for his fence, so he gets his little ghost buddies to do some paranormal shit there. And he shows up like, all right, I'll get rid of these ghosts, and I won't have to pay for your fence no more. But I like how the boyfriend or the husband of the main girl in this movie, Lucy, even when there's like frying pans and dishes and like all kinds of silverware flying around him, he's still saying like, Lucy, I'm sure there's an rational explanation for how this is happening. Like, he is not going to believe it ever. Like, he is just a skeptic to the end. He's like, I'm sure there's a scientific explanation for this, which is one of the funniest moments in the movie. That really made me laugh. And so then I like how he has a holy water gun. Looks like a real like 9mm, but he's shooting holy water out. He's got like this little mini oven thing device that he like made. It's bullshit. And but then like the dolls are coming to life. They're like humping the girl, and then like the bed's moving like exorcist style. Neat effects. The practical effects look good. The things that are like moving around on their own, cool. All that CGI. So And then we get the number on the head, and there's a ghost dog that's like fetching a corpse's jaw, which I thought was funny. And this ghost, played by John Aston, he looked just like Sid Haig to me as Captain Spaulding. When I saw him at first, I was like, that can't be. And so apparently babies can see ghosts. And the rules for being a ghost in this movie are never fully explained. You don't get it at all. Like, it's not like the movie Ghost with Patrick's, what's that guy's name? Whatever. It's not Patrick Stewart. Am I even? Yeah, whatever. He's dead now, but fuck. But that movie Ghost, where you have to like train yourself to finally be able to touch stuff. Otherwise you're just gonna keep falling through whatever. In this movie, it's never fully explained, so it's like sometimes they're falling through the floor, but then sometimes they're walking on the floor, and then sometimes they can like hit the wall, or they can hit objects, and then sometimes they go through objects. It doesn't make sense. Like, how does it work? I have questions, damn it. R Lee Ermey, he plays a drill sergeant. What a surprise. And his ghost is the only ghost in this movie that I'm aware of that can like change his outfit like that. He just keeps going from outfit to outfit, then like pulls up these machine guns. He's like the guard. He's the security guard for the dead at the cemetery. He makes sure that all the dead people stay dead. A Halloween 5 cop, yeah, the cop from Halloween 5, we see him. That was nice to see. Be out in the Flash. He's the best character in that movie. Halloween 5. Ugh. So, and then we hear about this car accident that Frank was in. That's how he got his power. In this movie, they say if you're in a traumatic experience, that's when you can, for some reason, see ghosts. And and then it's like a mystery. Like, did he kill his wife? And I feel like they don't really play with that enough. And like his love for his ex-wife, his dead wife, they don't really explore that enough. Like, make me believe that he gave a shit about that wife. I don't know. I just feel like that side of the story could have been done better. And his relationship with this girl, like, she is quickly on board with the idea that there's ghosts walking around. Like, she immediately is like on a date, like believing every word, it seems. I have to kind of call bullshit on that. And then we see the Reaper, and he's a CGI monster, but I dig the look. He's got a big old scythe, and he like crushes people's hearts to kill them. Okay, so this is another thing that kind of confused me, and maybe I could find the answer if I rewatched the movie. But it seemed to me at first, throughout the movie until like the very end, that these were strategic kills to frame Frank Bannister. Everybody that dies is always within proximity of him or somebody close to him, like the people who work at the newspaper and they write bad stories about Frank. They get killed, both of them, the editor and the person in charge. The guy in the bathroom, he's in the bathroom. It seemed like it was done strategically, but then the motivation at the end is just a body count. They're all about like, we need to kill so many people, we want to like get the high score, and I like that. That's grim, that's realistic, because that's usually how psychopaths work. They want to like just kill as many as possible before they get gunned down, and I like that there really isn't a motivation, unless I'm wrong, like I said. But at the end, it seemed like to me it was just about the number. Like, let's just kill as many people as we can. But then at the same time, it's like, but is it also about Frank? Are they trying to frame him? They killed his wife first. Like, why was she the first person that they went to? And then she steals his box cutter, and then they find it later on. That's like the clue, like, oh, it's Dee Wallace. But I already knew that. That twist just seemed obvious to me. Like, they try to play it off like, she liked this guy, but the guy went crazy, and she kind of got dragged into it, but she didn't do anything. It's like, bullshit now. She did it. And I like that scene later on where they're at the hospital. It, like, flashes back somehow, and he's, like, walking in, like, he goes to the past. Like Marty McFly. His character, Frank, he goes to the hospital during the massacre scene, and he sees it play out. And I wish we would have got to see some of that carnage actually happen on screen, but they cut away. It's all like artistic and, done in a way where you don't actually see it. And that's another thing I didn't really get to say my like, pros and cons is I feel like this movie is barely rated R. Is it rated R? Yeah, it is, for terror and violence. I feel like this movie could easily pass for PG-13 because there's like no swearing in it. It doesn't say R for language. So these kills, I feel like this could today be PG-13. So that's a bit of a negative. I feel like they could have upped that action, upped the gore, up the violence. If they actually were gonna, I mean, if this is R, they should have went for it, you know? Anyways, I'm all over the place. And we meet Jeffrey Combs. He's like the FBI guy. He's got all these scars. He's been through some shit. He's been undercover. He's been, in cults and whatnot. And it's fucked with him so much that when women yell at him, he like pukes. He has a hemorrhoid. There's a scene where there's like an interrogation scene, and he's interrogating Frank Bannister, and he goes to sit down, and this is before he has hemorrhoids, and like the donut that he sits on in the car, he's yelling at him, he's like getting into it, and then he like goes to sit down to get close to Frank, and then he immediately stands back up. It made me laugh. I was like, you just sat down, and then you got right back up. And it made no sense to me. And then later on, it's like, oh, he has hemorrhoids. That makes sense. So yeah. And then like Judge, the Captain Spaulding ghost, he's like in a museum. He sees like a mummy and like those big old like coffins, the Egyptian coffins. He goes inside, starts humping and having sex with a dead corpse. It's funny. And I like how these cops, when they see a walking mummy come towards them, their first instinct is not to run, but to yell freeze. Like they're they're dumbass cops. My favorite line from Combs when he's like, because it's something that I could say today easily with this whole quarantine and social distancing thing. He goes, "You are violating my territorial bubble." I'm gonna quote that sometime. I'm gonna find a way to use that in my life. Just, you're violating my territorial bubble. Get the fuck away from me. And then Frank's wife has 13 on her head. And like the fact that it was carved, like all the other ones, they like pop on and they're like invisible to other people. The fact that his wife had like it actually carved into her head, like in Glorious Bastards, that was another big clue to me right away. Like, see, that was not the Reaper that killed her. I mean, somebody had to physically carve that into her. So there's somebody else, Dee Wallace, working with the Reaper. So yeah, I quickly call into that. I just feel like that twist with Dee Wallace being crazy and she really did do it at the hospital. It just felt kind of obvious to me. We find out he did plant the garden. We find out that he was having marital problems because he wanted a basketball hoop instead of a garden, but then we see he actually planted the garden, so he hasn't really moved on. But then at the end of the movie, he moves on and he gets the new girlfriend. And they establish that she's a doctor, and I was wondering when that was going to come into play, and it does. She injects him with a drug, she slows his heart rate down, she freezes him because he needs to like die to go fight the Reaper for some reason. I guess he can't do it in human form. So that gets finally put to use, her doctor skills. But then, of course, Combs, he comes by to fuck up the works. He drags her away. He wants Frank Bannister to die because he thinks he's responsible for all these murders somehow. And this is another weird scene in the movie where what's the guy's name? The FBI guy, Combs. He's at the cemetery. He drags her away there. I don't know why. But then it seems like this movie's going in this other direction, but then it never like explores that. Like he pulls open his shirt and then he starts like trying like these mind tricks, like he's Tina in Friday the 13th, the New Blood. Like he thinks he's moving the car, but Frank's driving it as a ghost. He's like, I'm doing it, I'm moving the car. But, like he was like ripping open his shirt and he was saying like some monologue, and I was like, where is this going? But then it went nowhere. I thought they were gonna like give me some kind of twist reveal that he was responsible or he was working with the Reaper, something. But I don't know. That scene kind of confused me. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. But then we find out that the ashes were actually, what's the guy's name? Jake Busey, the killer in this movie. They're not the dad. They're Jake Busey's. That actually got me. I didn't see that coming. And yeah, she finally kills her mom. Like Dee Wallace, she finally kills her mom. What took so long? What took so long to do that? Like, there's no way she's been overpowering her. She's old. This is so silly, but when Jeffrey Combs' character is on the ground and he's got like a gun in his hand, Frank Bannister walks by and kicks down at him, and he kicks him so hard that the gun like flies up in the air somehow. It was just a funny little moment. So then we get Combs' character, his head gets blown right off, and it's CGI. It looks awful, but it was just the one moment that I always remembered from this movie, and that's why I want to talk about it. Yeah, he's the only good kill in the movie. head blown clean off. That's why it's rated R. That's sign language, right? For R. She's like trapped in an elevator, and he's like, don't go anywhere. Where's she gonna go? But then apparently it's not broken. She just goes back down and then leaves the elevator. It's like, okay, whatever. And then Frank somehow just takes Dee Wallace's soul out. Like, he's a ghost. Every other ghost, like, their ghost self comes out immediately. Like, once they die, they immediately come out. But him, it takes a good couple minutes for his ghost to come out to help his girlfriend out, Lucy. And he, like, snatches Dee Wallace's soul right out of her body. How does he do that? That doesn't make sense. How is he doing that? And then, like, he's, like, dragging her, like, to heaven. He's like, come get her, Jake Busey. And then he gets to heaven, and then Jake Busey and Dee Wallace, as they're, like, in the tunnel, it, like, turns into fire, and they get dragged to hell. And which was cool looking. It was a neat little visual of hell, what hell might look like if it were real. And Frank revived and lives and starts dating Lucy. Happy ending. Like, they could have had him sacrifice himself to save Lucy, some kind of sacrifice at the end. But no, everybody has to live. They revive him. He's back. And they live happily ever after. The Hottest Chick Award goes to Lucy. What a babe. And the best character in this movie, the Hockey Mask Award, clearly will go to Jeffery Combs' character because he's hysterical. And the Mr. Hanky Award for worst character will go to the black ghost guy. I don't have his name, but he was annoying. He yelled too much. And the Clap Award for best scene will go to the scene where Jeffery Combs is interrogating Frank Bannister. Everything he said in there, his performance, it's awesome and hysterical. And those are my thoughts on The Frighteners. What did you think about this 96 Peter Jackson classic? Put all your thoughts of it in the comments below. Explain anything I might have messed up, like with the story, because I feel like I missed something. But yeah, I'm sure I got some things wrong. Explain it to me in the comments below. And thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button, share with all your friends, and you become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.